Hey everyone, it's Rich Bennett. Can you believe it? The show is turning 10 this year. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in, shared an episode, or even joined the conversation over the years. You're the reason that this podcast has grown into what it is today. Together, we've shared laughs, tears, and moments that truly matter. So I want to thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the next 10 years even better.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Harford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch
It's probably the least sexy part of organizing. No. The truth is.
Well, hello. I'm Cardyn Brooks, book reviewer, self-published author, traditionally published author, and outreach director for the Right Women Book Fest.
She's back.
Hi, I'm Kristie Wolf, and I am an independently published author, and I write steamy romantic suspense.
Oh, this is your second time on too, isn't it?
This is my second time on.
Ah,
Yeah.
It's the first time she didn't even come here, but she knew how to get here. I wasn't going to tell her you called me.
No, I was definitely here. So was Aaron from Ohio.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Samantha Heil. I am the founder of the Book Fair at Bel Air. I'm also one half of the author duo E.S. Rosalind, and we write young adult contemporary romance, but we are about to release our first adult romance next year.
Oh,
That's exciting.
Well, isn't all adult
Not
romance
that-
exciting?
No, and I was just thinking in terms of your author journey, like
Yes.
when you start with usually the genre you're most comfortable with, familiar with, and all that, and then you gain your confidence, and then you decide you want to branch out. So,
See, I was going to say, because there's a big difference from writing songs based on 80s music and everything. I mean, books based on 80s music to doing, wait, did you say young romance or adult romance?
So the first series is based on different songs from the 90s
Well,
and
no, I know
2000s.
that.
So you had that correct, yeah. But they followed sort of the same story arc, but at this point we can add more mature themes, and we've found also being indie published that sells much better. The young adult isn't necessarily the way to go if you are indie published. If you're traditionally published, young adult is great-ish. I don't think you're going to, make too much money unless you're a Suzanne Collins or a J.K. Rowling or, one of those people.
Wow.
But yeah, we have found when we do events and when we do all of the things that adult romance sells so much better. And since we already really found our groove and our chops doing the YA, we've decided that we're going into adult for the next 3.
For the next 3 books.
Yes, the next 3 are
you've
planned.
written how many?
I've written 3, and my 4th will come out in mid-September.
And that's the same genre, same chili pepper stuff.
Same chili pepper
Three
stuff, yes.
3 chili peppers.
4.
What?
Pushing 4, yeah.
All right, wait.
I'd
So
say
you,
pushing
all right.
4.
And yours is going to be how many chili peppers?
Probably 2 or 3.
or 3.
We didn't want to transition from young adult to 5 chili peppers because we thought for the people who are already reading us that was probably not a great idea. So we're going to be low chili peppers the first couple, but we've had some ideas for, some higher chili pepper stuff later.
And speaking of higher chili pepper stuff, because Cardyn, what you write is it's like
It's
off
all
the
the
chili pepper scale. It's like ghost pepper shit.
yes.
I mean,
It's a bushel of chili peppers.
man, that is high.
It is. I write erotica. What started my journey was the erotica I was reading was emotionally not deep at all. It was strangers. It was a lot of sex. It was tab A, slot B, and it was very mechanical.
Okay, go ahead.
Very mechanical.
Okay.
And so I wanted as much emotional intimacy as sexual explicitness. And it really wasn't there. And then for me, with being Black, I also wanted fun romance that was super sexy, because when I started writing in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was a lot of one note about how Black people are. And so my parents I just wanted to write a fun fiction about privileged Black people, but for it to be fun. Like, it's not, if anything traumatic happens, it's going to have a happily ever after and all that good stuff. So, and I was writing what I knew, which is both my parents are college educated. They're college sweethearts. Little sidebar. So my parents were in the same intro to French class. My dad was getting an A and my mom was failing. So my dad liked her. So he offered to tutor her. So I was like, well, he tutored her.
If that isn't a romance storyline,
so
if
when
we've
people
ever
are
heard
like,
one.
romance is so unrealistic. Why do you love? I'm like, excuse me, my parents are like the, college sweetheart trope.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a result of that.
That's
So
the
Wait a minute, let me get this right. So you're writing
yes.
steamy sexual books about your parents?
no,
Oh, okay.
no.
I was going to say,
No. But what I'm saying is that my parents' love story is
Okay.
why I'm drawn to romance
Okay.
as a genre, as a reader, because I started as a reader.
He was really confused. Like his
I
face
was.
was legitimately
I know.
confused.
No.
Mm-hmm.
I was good.
No.
Yeah,
It's
Something
just that.
just didn't hit
Oh,
the
well,
ears
I'm
right.
sorry.
Yeah,
just
no,
glad
I'm glad you asked for clarification.
Well, I'm glad you
But
did it right
but
about
that's-
that. Because
No. But they really love each other and like each other, and
Right.
I say to people all the time that that's a direct path to why romance appeals to me as a reader and as an author, because my parents, they're baby boomers. So they were young adults before the passage of the Civil Rights Act and all of that. And yet, they and my grandparents savor joy. They like each other. They're friends. They get on each other's nerves. They go to neutral corners and all that. Right. But it's so, and so that's the kind of, you all have probably heard this before, because sometimes critics of romance are like, it's so unrealistic. It's so blah, blah, blah. But it's like, well, it's fantasy, but it's fantasy rooted in,
It's rooted in real life.
it's rooted in
Yes,
reality.
Yes.
Tropes come from somewhere.
yes.
There's a reason we have them. They've
Yes.
happened enough
Yes.
times. And I actually think it's harder to write tropes because you are in you're in something that's already outlined for you. And
Yes.
so you have to make it fresh and exciting and
Yes.
different with something that's already
Yes.
all right,
Yes.
explain what trope is.
So a trope is basically a story. How do you put it?
Like a recognizable theme
Yes.
or structure.
Structure. That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Right.
It's
It
a
is, it's kind of the convention in the story, maybe.
Convention's
so,
good, yeah.
For example, enemies to lovers. You have two people that hate each other for whatever reason, and by the end of the book, there's a marriage proposal. They have fallen in love. Friends to lovers.
Yeah. Second chance.
Yep.
Secret baby.
Secret baby. Opposites attract.
Yes. Workplace.
Secret baby?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
a good
That's a
one.
whole
That's a big one.
thing.
It's a
It's
whole
a
thing.
whole thing.
We're going to let you figure out what secret
My
baby
favorite
means.
is called Black Cat Golden Retriever. That's my
yeah.
favorite one.
Yeah.
So you're talking two opposite personalities with usually the woman. I do love a man black cat, though. They just don't have them very much.
Right.
A woman who's a little bit more standoffish, a little bit more introverted, maybe doesn't come off as, bold as, anybody else.
Right.
And then you have the man who's kind of like the happy-go-lucky golden retriever. And so you watch those personalities kind of meet. And that's a trope.
Grumpy sunshine.
Yes.
Oh, man, I'm learning all kinds of terminology.
And
here
within
now.
these tropes, there's a conflict. Enemies to lovers, there's obviously a conflict. Secret baby, when someone shows up at your doorstep with a 5-year-old and says, this is your kid, that's a big conflict.
There you get those phone
Friends to
calls.
lovers, there's a conflict. There's always the risk that things are going to go wrong. And so that's what kind of drives your story. And that's what readers recognize.
Okay.
Yeah, romance is known for tropes.
Yes.
Some people hate them because they think that they're too formulaic, but I love them because I think that they give you structure to work within, and now you have to prove that you can work within that kind of outline, and you can make it fresh, and you can make it really interesting without having to bend the rules, because
Right.
these are the rules that romance readers expect. Romance readers expect tropes. They expect a happy ending. And if you're not doing that, you're not romance.
Right. You can be a love story,
Right.
but romance has certain expectations, and that delivery of the at least happily together now at the end, at least that.
So the romance readers, are they also looking for like the sequels?
They love a good series.
I
They love
mean,
a
sure,
series,
yeah, they
yeah.
love a
Yeah,
series,
okay.
yeah.
Because you fall in love with the characters. And so
Right.
I'm working on a series right now. 2 of my 3
A
books.
new one?
No, the same one.
Oh, okay.
So 2 of my 3 books, my Project Viper series, book 1 was Too Dangerous to Love, book 2 is Too Lethal to Love, and Too Guarded to Love comes out in September. It's a military series. And so there's 4 guys on my team, and they'll each get their own happily ever after. They'll each get their own book. They're called interconnected standalones. So there's no cliffhangers. The end of every book, those 2 characters are happy. There's a proposal. It is all wrapped up nice and tight with a bow. But then the next book, we go on to another guy in the team and we get his love story. So all those characters that you have fallen in love with, you get to meet them in all the other books.
All right, so your series is only going to be 3 books,
It's
right?
going to be 4.
It's
I
gonna
have
be
4
4.
super soldiers.
Okay. So what are you going to do after then, after the 4th one?
Well, I'm writing a prequel.
Okay.
So we're going to backtrack to the origins. There's an origin story, basically, the origins of the story. I have a book out called Knife to the Heart. That's my small town. And my hero has 3 friends, and they'll each get their own story. So I'm going to backtrack to that, too, once I finish up the Project Viper
Origins.
series.
You like watching Marvel movies.
I do. I love my Marvel movies. My project,
you said
my
the origins,
project,
I knew it.
my Project Viper series is just like Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier. He has that sexy bionic arm, and my characters have bionic limbs that
love
shoot
it.
deadly lasers.
You know I have not seen that one yet.
You haven't seen anything with Bucky Barnes in Marvel?
I don't think so.
Winter Soldier? Yeah, he's my favorite. He's so tragic and wounded, and he just really needs a hug.
Interesting.
And I volunteer as tribute to hug him.
Don't start. All right. So God, and
It's okay. You're going to be okay.
your books are gonna your new books
Yes.
are gonna be a series as well.
Yes. So our
3 of them.
new series is Small Town Romance. And so in that, mine will also be interconnected standalones. But we have
Okay.
3 brothers. So you'll get to see the first brother go through his story, get his happily ever after. But the thing that I think a lot of readers love about interconnected standalones is that you get to see the other characters pop up as you read. You get to know the town. You get to know the side characters. You get to know it's charming. By the time you're done with the series, you feel like you could live there. You feel like it's really cozy and nostalgic. And I think that's what people really love about it. You add some drama, of course, but then
Right.
you can add some humor and some heart and these things that really bring people into the romance genre because they're looking for joy. They're looking for a place to, be able to escape for a little bit because not everything is always joyful, of course, right? So these books provide them a space where they can go to find their joy, find their happy, and be able to just, enjoy life for a little bit.
Well, if it wasn't for books like those, there wouldn't be a Hallmark channel.
Of course.
Seriously. I mean,
Because that laid the foundation for it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That laid the foundation for it where it kept gaining momentum. Because now, before the Hallmark Channel, they would seasonally have some movies
Yes.
Right,
that
well,
way.
yeah.
And then they
Made for
recognized
TV.
how much they were, the ratings. And, if the ratings are high, that means that the advertising fees are high. And it's a business. Yes, it's art and creative, but the accountants are like, oh, look,
Right.
when we show this kind of content, these are the viewership numbers you get, and this is the advertising revenue you generate.
And so with Hallmark movies, people make fun of them because they're so predictable, right? Like you can say at exactly what minute of that movie that
Right.
something is going to happen.
But it keeps you hooked.
But and people keep coming back because people like what they're familiar with and what they're comfortable with. Just like Harlequin romances. I started reading those when I was 12 years old, which was a long, long time ago. But that formula is the same. They don't deviate, and
It's satisfying.
It's satisfying.
I call it brain candy.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
for
That's a good
anybody
one.
that eats candy, I'm a chocoholic.
Same.
I want my chocolate bar, whatever brand it is, I want that experience of that chocolate bar to be the same. And it's almost a little bit for anybody that's old enough to remember the new Coke thing, where your Coke, people love Coke. And my mom, at the time that it happened, she said, when they said they were bringing a new Coke, I didn't know they were getting rid of the old Coke.
Yeah. It hurt them.
It did, but then they swung the
Yep.
other way,
Right,
and
yeah.
they were.
so imagine if
back
you
on
watched
top.
a Hallmark movie and the heroine died at the end.
Oh, no.
Right.
Never going to happen.
Right. And you will get slaughtered on social media, all the medias.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
My wife could be watching a movie on Hallmark, and I'll sit down and ask her, "What are you watching?" And then I can't get up because it does. It just it draws you in.
Yes.
It
It hits all those, whatever those satisfaction
It's a
synapses
dopamine
are.
hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a dopamine
And
hit.
I read this a few years ago. People, you have a bad day, right? So what do? You come home and you sit and you watch the TV and you watch other people live and navigate and are tortured by problems. And you watch that whole movie because it gives you hope that you can figure out your own stuff too, that everything is going to be okay. It was okay for them on TV. They had a satisfying ending, even if it wasn't a romance. The bad guy was caught. They saved the ranch, whatever.
Right.
And it internally gives people hope that their lives will work out too.
If you're a podcast host or someone wanting to be interviewed on podcasts as a guest, visit podmatch.com. Podmatch automatically connects ideal podcast guests and hosts together for interviews. We always say it works just like a dating app, but instead of connecting you for dates, it connects you for podcast interviews. Podmatch has connected over 85,000 guests and hosts together for interviews that listeners love, all while saving you countless hours of administrative work through built-in automations. If you're ready to level up your podcast interviews on either side of the mic, start today by visiting podmatch.com.
I think something that people don't realize when they think about romance is that it's a billions of dollar industry.
It pays
huge.
for all the other genres.
It's the number one selling industry. And not only that, it's becoming so normalized that when people say, oh, romance is just blah, 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 there's women who are now standing up and saying, absolutely not. Like, you can have $1 billion porn industry, but we can't have, romance books that might have some sex in it. Yeah. So it's really becoming, I think, more normalized because now even when you go to like book clubs and stuff, you find other women who read the same stuff that you do. Yeah. And it is a very female-dominated, female-dominated field. But I do feel like even men are coming into it because if you go on social media or if you go wherever, there are men who are reading it as well. So I think it's becoming, not only is it the number one, but it's becoming sort of a staple. This is not just, oh, you read romance. Right. It's not literary fiction. Right. Abby Jimenez won Book of the Year last year. Yes. That's huge. Yes. I mean, huge. Her name is Abby Jimenez. She's like a very large romance author. And she's the first one who won, I want to say it was Goodreads Book of the Year. It was huge. Right. It's either Goodreads or Book of the Month, and I can't remember which, but it's one of them. And she won it, and everyone was like, oh, this is the first romance author who's won this award. So you can really see how far we've come from thinking romance was kind of a fluff genre and just not anything that's really worth reading, to now she beat out every single, literary fiction novel from last year.
And traditional publishing is struggling. Because back in their heyday, when they were the gatekeepers, the unchallenged gatekeepers, they could pay the literary, usually male author, X amount of generous advance, and his sales might never cover the advance. But they were making so much money elsewhere because they had no other competition. But then with the rise of self-publishing, which when I self-published my first book, Seducing the Burkes, in 2004. Still, some people called it vanity publishing because self-publishing was considered you weren't good enough to get a traditional publishing deal. And the reason I went self-publishing is I kept getting great feedback I would submit to editors and agents, and they would read it and they would say they read the whole thing in one sitting, that they had other people in the office read it, and then I would get a rejection because it would be this coded language that would say along the lines of, but is it going to appeal to your target reader? And what I had to read between the lines was, because I'm writing about privileged Black people, and the perception was that the majority of my readers would be Black, and their understanding of Black people's experience is that most Black people aren't privileged. And so it was this cascading thing of assumptions. And I got that so many different versions of that. Then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to self-publish and see what happens. And what happened is people that wanted to read erotica with more emotional intimacy really liked it. And it didn't matter about their age or their ethnicity or their social economic class. And so I was first runner-up in the category of erotica sexuality, but I lost out to this really great academic book about the kind of the history of erotica from like Asian cultures, and he had done a lot of research, so I was annoyed, but at least he deserved it.
You said seducing the Burks?
Yes, because the family is the Burks.
Well,
And
I figured that much.
And so it's 5 siblings, so it's 4 brothers and their sister. And erotica, because it's so intense, it's short stories. I call them thematically linked. You can read each story and it provides a whole story arc, but then the connection. I just am not as talented and as patient as the people who write actual series where multiple books are connected. I'm like, wow, my brain will explode.
At first, I thought it was like a very hot family and somebody's coming in seducing the whole family.
Oh no, those books exist.
Yeah.
Those do, but that's not what mine is. But Seducing the Burks is individual, each sibling's individual love story.
Look at his face.
Of who they come across. It's a lot out there.
You-
the
yeah.
dark romance.
There's a whole world of things you don't know going on in the book community.
Romantasy.
Yeah, and I feel like TikTok has really made so much of this explode. They're exposing all of our secrets, and now everybody knows the kinds of books. Like when you think of a book person, you don't think of, a certain type of woman who maybe is owning their sexual experience.
Yes.
You think of, someone who's nerdy and really introverted, and that's really not the case anymore. They're really kind of exposing this whole world of women who are really into reading all kinds of really silly things. The book that I was just telling you about, literally, it's called 5 Brothers by Penelope Douglas, and it is
polyamory?
exactly what you think it is. It's 5 brothers.
But that's way back from Maya. Was her name Banks? There's a longtime polyamory.
It's not even polyamory. It's just sex. It has an HEA, and it's not why choose. She does choose. I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
so,
gotcha.
but I mean, it's all with it because his face is right now is just
HGA?
he's completely
Happily ever after.
Oh,
Okay.
he's completely stunned right now. So I'm just trying to give him some.
no,
I got you. No.
I'm sitting here thinking because of the romance and the erotica books. Do you guys know if there are any male authors that write this stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
There are.
Yeah.
Because I'd be embarrassed. I'd be afraid I might get something wrong and a woman call
They
me
do.
out on. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. No, they often do. And I think for a lot of us, we want to read women authors.
Yeah.
I don't go looking for men who write romance. Now, if I had heard something was really good, there are a few who can do it really well.
Yeah.
Jeff Zentner is really good. He has a pulse on like the emotional.
Why have I heard that name?
He's a writer. He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's really successful.
And he's written both for teens and for adults and has done both really well. So there are some guys out there who really can, but they write from a male gaze still. You
Yes.
can still
Yes.
tell that there's a man writing about it, but he does it in such a way where, as a woman, I don't feel like he's getting it wrong.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. There are definitely things where I've read it and been like, oh, you don't even know like anatomy, I don't think. So it is definitely, read a book, buddy, before you got to do your research.
Right. These days, research is
go on
what
a
it
date.
is.
Yeah. I don't even think that's good enough anymore. I really think we need to start handing out like maps and, things because
This could be a whole workshop.
this could
Sam.
totally.
You should plan something.
We have learned I feel like, so I only started reading romance a couple of years ago. And in my experience, I've learned some I didn't want to know.
Right.
And like some, I'm like, oh, that's what that is. Like, oh, I feel like a lot of women are experiencing the same thing with this boom of romance novels and just reading in general. I feel like reading is really making a comeback, with it
The
being,
assault on literacy and libraries and book bans and
and I feel like people want to read. It's joyful. It brings people happiness. So there's a little bit of something for everyone.
There is. There really is. And to go with your TikTok thing as well of broadening horizons, because there is a memoir out by a young woman, like 40-ish, where she shares about her sexual journey as a single, no kids person in a world that for women that can be really challenging for how people perceive you. And then she went to Paris and I'm mostly here to enjoy myself. That's not exactly the title, but it's something like that. And I'm sorry, I can't remember her name at all right now. But I feel like the boom of TikTok and expanding literary horizons, I feel like that created an environment for her nonfiction memoir to be received more positively.
It's a great time for something like that right now.
And I feel like TikTok has made really brought dark romance into the mainstream. And, you know, women aren't embarrassed to say, well, yeah, I love a book where 3 masked men are chasing women through the woods.
Yes.
I told you there's something for everyone. Again, his face. I just need to.
I just been waiting for Kristie to open up. I mean,
but you know, like Sam said, I mean, there is something for everybody. And I didn't know I was a dark romance fan until I got on TikTok, and I only got on TikTok when I started publishing, and now I'm totally hooked, and I read things that question my morality. But I'm not the only one doing it. There's lots of us out there, and at the end of the day, it is.
You're putting on a mask and chasing men through the woods.
No, it's the other way.
No, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
So men are chasing you through the woods.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a whole and you
But
we haven't
people
even
do
gotten into
full
like the whole
disclosures,
bit.
content warnings.
Oh
Yes.
pages and pages of trigger warnings.
And there's not, and, you know, this I could go on a whole different episode, a tangent about this, but there's not even that in teen books. We don't give trigger warnings. We don't give age recommendations. There's nothing for teen books. But for dark romance, you get pages and pages of trigger warnings. No, we hand books about whatever.
Yeah.
Not just a trigger warning in the beginning?
No, there's nothing.
Well, no, the beginning has pages and pages of triggers warnings.
Yes, for dark romance.
For dark
but
romance.
for teen books, there is none of that.
Some of the teen books out there.
I
need that.
know. I've been reading them, and they're getting
Some of the elementary school books out there.
not elementary. They're getting more and more open too, which really infuriates me because we're not putting anything. The American Library Association thinks that we shouldn't label things because it adds to more book banning, which I think is the exact opposite. I actually think because we're not labeling, these parents are going in there angry.
And they're getting shocked and horrified and afraid.
Right.
Look what happened to the record industry when they made it that you had to put the explicit language on the records. Record sales took off. They exploded. Yeah. Put it on the books.
I've been on this.
I also think that the term young adult is deceiving.
Yes.
Yes. A better, like, my husband and my son were way into audiobooks before I was. I never listened to an audiobook until I started seriously writing because I didn't have time to sit and read. But my husband had an Audible account for several years, and my daughter wanted to read. So she's like 10 at the time, 10, 11 years old. Yeah. And she was still at the age where she would let me lay down with her at night in bed, and she would put her new book on. Well, she wanted fantasy. And so my husband went on Audible and he Googled fantasy and young and adult. And she started listening to Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass series.
Oh, no.
Now, the first, there's not much going on in the first 2 books or so. But as a romance writer, I know what's coming, right? And I'm laying there with her and I'm like, wait a minute. So I went downstairs and I'm like, honey? He's like, it said young adult. And I'm like, that is not what young adult means.
Right.
And he's like, well, they need a better label then.
They sure do.
Because it has to do with the age of the characters, not what the content of the book is.
Right.
Yeah, my entire thing has been 13 to 17 should be teen. We should be calling it teen, and we should be putting trigger warnings on it.
Yes.
18 to 22 is a college age. It's a different type of story. It's a whole different sector. We should be calling that young adult or new adult or whatever they want to call it.
Yes.
But teen should be clearly labeled because those books are in schools. And what happens is teachers and librarians are getting the fallout for that.
Yep.
My poor librarian had A Court of Thorns and Roses shelved for several years, all of them, including Silver Flames, for many years because she did not know what was in there. And so we would find kids back there in the corner reading and giggling because you can imagine what's in some of these books.
Yes.
Wow.
And eventually she pulled them because she figured out what was in them, but it's just not there.
You never mentioned yours. How many books have you written so far?
I have written 4
Besides
books.
Seducing the Burks.
Oh, 3 other books. Seducing the Burks, When She's on Top, that's about...
you got my attention already.
It's of corporate women, when you're the boss. Mm-hmm. And Dodging Eros, which was traditionally published, and so was When She's on Top. Dodging Eros is out of print right now, but I love that. It was my more experimental. it was firefighters, and again, it was 3 siblings, and it had a little bit of a suspense element too.
Okay.
I love that. But yeah, I really write for myself first, and then figure out the business of it later.
I think that would make it better when you write for yourself first.
But I understand that that's a privilege I have as a strategy, because people who make the jump and their book sales are paying for the mortgage and the utilities and putting away for retirement, that's a different calculation. But I'm in a very privileged situation where I can actually write for myself first, because don't make the connection you made before, but I will say this about my parents. They're both artists, so I can't draw. They tried really hard, and then they had to like, oh, she can't draw. But they tried, and because my parents are all positive reinforcement, they're like, interesting, and I'm like, I can't draw.
Why is that stick figure
Right,
all week?
exactly. I'm like, but anyway, but what they've instilled in me creatively is do it for yourself first, and then if you're trying to make a business of it, figure out the business part after you do the art part for your heart, kind of thing.
And speaking of the business part, because I've talked to a ton of authors, and the biggest problem that it seems like a majority of them have is the marketing. Of course, getting on podcast helps, but I think the events, book fairs, and even the book signings and all that is very important. But you still see a lot of authors that don't do that. Why?
Yeah. So for Aaron and I, the reason we went indie was because I already had background in business. I had already been running an e-commerce business, so I knew how to do everything already. And so if you're traditionally published, they expect you to do a certain amount of marketing anyways.
Right.
And then they're also taking a cut.
Right.
So for us, it just didn't make any sense to go that route. But for me, when I started publishing and really recognizing that there was an entire business behind it, I had gone to Cardyn's event, the Women's Write Book Festival, and it was the first time I really felt in community with other writers and other, and other authors. It's actually what inspired me to create my book fair, because I went in there and I was like, "This is amazing. My community has nothing like this." I mean, they're in Bowie, so it was a little bit of a hike for us. But our community didn't have anything like it, and books are becoming huge. They're bringing people together. And so for me, as someone who's always worked in literacy in one form or another, I wanted to bring that to Bel Air. We don't have an indie bookstore. We don't have any of those things. Correct. So I wanted, my entire goal was to open an indie bookstore for a long time. I don't even know if that's the goal now, but for a long time it was. And so I thought, I can do this. I can't open a bookstore, but I can do this. And so I started the book fair at Bel Air, and last year was our first year, and I was just blown away by how many people came out to support us.
Heather sold the most books. I don't know if she told you this, she sold the most books that she'd ever sold at an event.
Every author that was there said that the Bel Air,
I sold a lot of books that day.
Yeah, the Bel Air community came out. They bought books. Not only did they come to visit, but they came to buy books, which is really the best way you can support an indie author, is to pick one and buy a book, or buy as many as you're able,
Yes.
But they came in and everybody was like, oh my goodness, I'm out of, I sold out. I've never in my life sold out. We sell a couple because, again, we're teen. We don't always hit those audiences. We were out. We were sitting there just handing people flyers because we never get that many books for an event.
It astounds me that I'll go to. I do a lot of events. I love them.
You're always had there.
I love it. It's my favorite thing to do as an author. I used to go to huge technology trade shows and all the big convention centers throughout the country, and I loved the energy, and I loved talking to people and. I love the planning of it. I loved everything about it. And so I had been out of that for quite some time. So this gives that back to me. But it just amazes me that people who don't know me, they've never read a book of mine, will buy all 3 of my books. Yeah. And I kind of feel like I should talk them out of it sometimes. I'm like, wait, don't you just want to try one and make sure you like me? But I don't. I'm like, absolutely, here are all 3. Yeah. And that I mean, and that's wonderful. They're taking a chance on me. They love to read, but I am very aware that a lot of it comes from supporting indie authors and giving us a chance. You know, that they, as a hardcore reader, they know the work that goes into it, and they respect that, and we so appreciate it. Right Women's was my first, aside from the coffee bar here in town. Right Women was my first event too that I ever did.
How long have you been doing that one?
We started, our first year was 2019. So let me tell a real quick story about how it started. So Heather had started her Women Authors of Maryland salon, where she wanted to have intimate meetings about once a month of mostly newer and indie authors. And she was doing that in Greenbelt because at the time, I think she worked at the New Deal Cafe in Greenbelt. So I went to the first meeting, I want to say January or February of 2019. And in that, she just casually says, you know, I think we need like a woman-centered book event. I'm going to do some research and see if one exists. But if one doesn't, I think we should start one. So that's what she said in January, February. So then the next meeting, February or March, she just casually says, she's like, I couldn't find one. So I'm gonna start one. And I got a venue at Marietta House Museum, their property, and because she had gotten married there years earlier. And she's like, and it's going to be September, whatever the last weekend of September of 2019. So my little inner hermit, I don't talk to people. I like people, but I will stay in the house. And I had already signed up saying I would support her. And I'm like, September of this year? I'm like, it's like March. So, and then, but we got it done. And then thank goodness we did, because then the next year was COVID. So we wouldn't have, if we had waited, we probably wouldn't have been able to launch. But because people had a good experience the first year, they took a chance on us again when we were like, okay, we're going to try to do this virtual thing with the second year of this book fest. And we did great. Yeah. People really, the community supported, and then we were able to get we had a few people international because we were virtual, which otherwise we wouldn't have been able to. And then it kept our momentum going. And so every year we were bigger, at least participants and attendees, but it's still me and Heather. And I may have said this already. Heather does the work of like 3 people because she's creative and she's technical. Mm-hmm. So all our website, social media, graphics, whatnot, she does. But Heather has a full-time job. She's married. She's a grandparent. She's on-call caregiver for a particular family member. And
you're listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. We'll be right back.
Hey, Terry Troyer, station coordinator here at 91.1 WHFC, inviting you to support us right now at WHFC911.org. Your support keeps us playing your favorite tunes and bring you the latest campus news too. Donate right now. Be a part of our vibrant community, WHFC911.org. And thanks.
That's why this year is our grand finale, because our team isn't like the event. If it just for love for the participating authors and the attendees in the event, we do it till we died. Right. But Heather might die at the end of the year. Like at the end of the year, because we had a Zoom a couple months ago, and Heather, I could tell she was exhausted. Yeah. And she said, what if this is our last year? And I said, let's go out with a bang. And she started crying because she didn't want to tell me that she was so exhausted. Yeah. And I was like, Heather, we did our best. We looked for corporate responsibility, blah, blah, but we had a great partnership with the library. And so what you were saying earlier about people taking a chance on you, the other thing with the partnership with the library is we tell our participating authors and our attendees, like, hey, we know everybody has a book budget, based on what your numbers are. But most of the participating authors' books are in the Prince George's County Memorial Library system, and you can borrow it. So spend all your money on the books you can buy, and then you can also help an author by borrowing their book. Because if enough people borrow their book and request it, they get 10 requests, the library will buy another copy for the system, because it's a numbers thing. Mm-hmm, so we tell people there's so many non-money ways or free ways that people can help authors that maybe you're not sure if you just can't afford to buy their book. Borrow it from the library. Do an interstate because maybe you don't live in Prince George's County, but a lot of times you can do an interstate library borrowing thing, and your library system can borrow from theirs. But again, it gets the circulating. And if you write a review, if you follow them, like there's so many things that don't cost money that if you're just willing to put forth the effort for an author that you had a good engagement with. So that's the other thing. But hearing you all's comments, you can probably see I was tearing up because that's the core of what we wanted for the Right Women Book Fest, for authors to feel in community with each other. When we do stupid stuff, we try to share, like, don't do this because that was bad. Because there are other mistakes you can make and lessons you can learn, but don't make the mistake we made. Like, make some other
those mistakes.
Yeah. But sometimes they're so costly. And that's, again, with the one that failed with the Million Lives, she just was too ambitious. At least from the outside looking in, it seems like not reasonable expectations for the size of her team. The venue can crush you, because I know what we're paying low five figures at Bowie Comfort Inn and Conference Center in Bowie, Maryland. But we had looked at, sidebar, let me backtrack. So Marietta was free because it was, so we did 4 years free, which was great because it was considered a cultural event, and Heather had gotten married there, so she already knew the staff and they had a relationship. So that, set yourself up for success, because our first year, we weren't even sure it's going to be an annual thing. We're like, well, we have this idea. Let's see if it's going to fly. And it did. And then Marietta worked with us through the pandemic and all that, and we kept our momentum. But if first year going out, you choose the Baltimore Convention Center, I can't imagine what just the fee for the convention center was.
There were a lot of issues. Kristie and I were both tabling at that book festival.
Oh, I didn't know you.
We were both there. Yeah,
at the convention center.
Yeah. So this just about a month ago, there was a very large convention down in Baltimore that made national news because the event organizer basically promised, over-promised and way under-delivered is how to put that. And I will say, just from having been inside all of the hoopla, that it was very messy. And a lot of people are very hurt. And I think as an event organizer, the last thing you want to do is piss off your authors. That's just really like the baseline.
Well, and it could hurt other people like you. You're trying to put together an event.
Yes, it has. And people are now sort of, I have had people reach out because that particular person was supposed to be tabling at my event. And I actually had to let them go because isn't going to work. Because I had people reach out and say, I'm uncomfortable, don't want to be in the room. So, it ended up being a much bigger thing. I mean, it got all the way to The Guardian, covered it all the way in the UK. I mean, it was huge. And so not only, does it kind of give a bad name to people who are running book events legitimately and really putting so much effort into it, but there really was a level of dishonesty that I've never seen in the book community. And so for us, I don't think we're ever going to see any money back, but I think that we are definitely lessons learned and, lots of lessons learned. So
you have one coming up because the first one you did was at Bel Air Armory.
Yes. So this year is also going to be at Bel Air Armory. Okay. Yes. We're signed on for August 23rd from 10 to 2. Book fair at Bel Air. We're free. Come on over and check us out. It is August 23rd this year. And you get the inside scoop. I am expanding next year. So I will be at Hartford Community College, at APG FCU. I will be
in the arena?
In the arena.
Wow. Congratulations.
So we will be tripling the authors next year. Yeah. We're going from this year we have just a little bit over 40 but we have a lot of table sharing going on. Right. Yeah. So there's not that many tables, but next year it'll probably be up to 110. So we definitely need the community to come on out and support us. We had 1,300 people in the door last year. Wow. It is wild. I was amazed looking out over the armory at one point. It was just people. And it was just such a cool experience to see the community come out and be so supportive and, really put their money where their mouth is. They really did. They showed up and they bought books. And we were we were all so amazed. So
that's outstanding.
It was amazing. It was a really cool feeling. It was really just cool to know that people care about literacy and people care that people are reading, and reading is important. And because we hear so much how, the reading scores, and they're horrible. They're horrible in this country. They just are.
What's the date of that again?
What's that?
What's the date of that one?
So that's August 8th next year. That's a Saturday. 2026.
This year is August 23rd.
This year is August 23rd at the Bel Air Armory. And it's been a wild experience. We've really blown up over the past. I have a waiting list of over 50 authors.
But bravo to you, because that speaks to what you have created.
It's been really cool. And I just feel really lucky to have so many people in the community that are so supportive. I have a wonderful book club. They show up anytime I ask them to do anything. I mean, they're just wonderful humans. Yes, put it on your calendar.
I love, because I couldn't make it last year. Something came up. I forgot what it was. But I love going to these things. Maybe
you still owe Erin an AOL CD, I think, from our last interview. And I think she was.
Get it?
No, she didn't get it.
I sent it to her.
Did you? Oh, look at your face. No, you didn't. He promised. Yeah, he promised my co-author an AOL CD, like a very old one. Yeah. A little bit of nostalgia because our book series is based in the early 2000s, and so we were joking about AOL, and she was waiting for you and your AOL CD.
I am still waiting for an email back from AOL.
Oh, okay.
For the CD.
That's AOL sound, hilarious.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
I can't even remember.
Well, we hope everybody can come out and hang out with us this year. And Cardyn has an event, too, if you want to tell us the date.
Oh, sure. So the Right Women Book Fest, our grand finale year, we're Saturday, July 19th. That day is the tabling. We'll have about 120 authors, mostly fiction, nonfiction, and adult. But this year we're going to have a separate children's room that has about 10 authors, drag queen story time, crafts, and we are so fortunate because this year Kim C. Lee, who's a very successful indie children's author, is in charge of that, because Heather and I, that's not our area of expertise. And so we felt like in past years it's floundered because that's not our area of expertise. And Kim agreed with us, and she was willing to volunteer to make that better for everybody. So we're just really excited. So that's the first day from 12 noon to 5 p.m. at the Bowie Comfort Inn Conference Center in Bowie, Maryland. And then a little bit in response to the failure of that book event at the Baltimore Convention Center, we decided to go conservative for day 2. We were originally going to be at Bowie Comfort Inn and Conference Center on day 2 as well, but we reached out to the library, and saving almost $5,000, we're day 2 for workshops and some panels. Discussions. We're going to be at the South Bowie Library branch, which is only a few miles away from the hotel and not too hard to get to. But yeah, we're like, you know what? The tabling day is the most important day. Mm-hmm. And the second day, it has substance, but it's not worth that financial risk in this environment. Because originally when we signed the contract, it was even before last year's election. Oh. So, yeah. So, and then the library is already our partner. So, just kudos to libraries and librarians who just, when I reached out to them and I just said, and they, of course, they had heard about the failed, and they're like, we totally understand. You can have, there's a second floor on the South Bowie Branch Library. That's a big meeting room, a conference room, and a smaller room. But between those 3 rooms, we can do all the things we want to do on that second day. And they're like, come on. So we had to make some adjustments because it's a Sunday and they're only open from 1 to 5. Okay. So that compressed our day, and we're going to do some things virtually and connect in that way. But very quickly, it was like a 48-hour turnaround. The library's like, we've got you.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Now, are you going to have workshops and panel discussions?
No, I am completely, and I feel like I will probably stay completely a vendor event.
I think that's smart.
I feel like, I love panels, as a writer, but as an event planner, I don't see those being very profitable, and they're never very well attended. They are for writers, and they are for people who really want to dig into their craft. And so if that's your audience, that's your target audience, those are great. But you're bringing in those people probably at a fee of some sort, and they're coming in to learn, right?
Right.
And so for me, mine is really to center the authors. The authors are the stars. They are the people who you are coming to see. The audience is the community. And for the community, they're not really coming to us to learn about author's craft or, whatever, writing, whatever. And so all of the ones that I've been to, panels and discussions and all of that are great. But I haven't seen them be very well attended, as Cardyn said.
Yeah. So the panels aren't like, they're not where the author's sitting up there with a host and then the people attending can ask about their characters and everything?
They are.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, sometimes you have just a few people sitting in the audience.
And it depends how the event is structured.
Right.
And how the event organizer wants to structure it.
Right.
And so it depends what you're looking for. There's an event in Massachusetts that I went to last year called Fall in Love New England, and I'm trekking it all the way back up to Massachusetts again this year. And it was one of my favorite events. It was a 2-day event. This year it's a 3-day event. And all day is panels. Yeah. And then in the evening is the book signing. And then there's a big lunch, there's a big dinner in the ballroom that the readers and the authors attend. And as an author, it was fabulous for me because I spoke on 2 panels and I spoke about my books. Now we're all there in the same hotel for the weekend. There were 40, 50 readers and authors in the room listening to us speak, but there was nothing else going on. And so authors didn't have to leave their tables to go speak on a panel. Readers didn't have to leave the signing. And so once people heard about me talking about my books, nobody knew me. I'm not even from that area. They came to my table and they were like, "Oh, we heard you speak." And there was everything from author accounting to characterization, and then I did this really fun thing called speed dating, where we had to make trading cards, like baseball cards. Shh, don't tell my husband, it was a girls' weekend. What happens at the book fair stays at the book fair. So we made trading cards of our characters, and there were 10 tables of 10 readers each, so 50 readers and authors in the room. Actually, they had to kick the authors out because it was a first come, first serve for readers. And 5 authors, and we had 10 minutes at each table, and we sold those readers on our characters. So we handed out the trading cards, and I was like, "This is him and this is her," and then I sold so many books that way. But I also was able to make good reader connections because I was sitting next to them in workshops. I was sitting at the lunch. I was hanging out at the bar with them. And so, we're
Say the name of the event again, please.
It's called Fall in Love New England.
Okay.
So it really just depends how the event is structured. And if
I guess
it's
a
structured
one-day
well,
event
it's a
wouldn't
win-win.
make sense.
No.
Right.
Because,
and that's what we learned the hard way in 2023. Our first day, we had tabling, but then we had some panels. Now, our panels were well attended, but for us coordinating it was a nightmare. Right. And that's why then Heather was like, I think we should do 2 separate days. And the first day is just tabling, no panel discussion.
Yeah, because like you said, you don't want to pull the authors away.
You don't want people to have to make a choice.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so for now, I'm doing strictly vendor event, but in the future, that could change.
If it goes more than 2 days or more than a day.
Yeah, for sure. But I've definitely learned, how to split the authors and how to kind of get the, community involved. I've got different people coming in, like the children's section. I really leaned into the children's section, and that's sort of it's funny because I have no experience in children's whatsoever, but I found that community wants something for their kids to do. Kids can't be sitting at home doing nothing. And what better way to spend a day than to bring them to a book fair? So we had face painting, we had an art table, we had Pete the cat running around. We're going to have all those things again this year. Hopefully some new fun little things going on too. And
you ought to bring Bluey and see if Bluey can catch the cat.
I don't think that's Bluey. I also don't Bluey was first a TV show, so I really tried to get a literary character, a beloved book character. And so when I went to get my character, the list of them wasn't really all that impressive because they were all TV shows that eventually became books.
Yeah.
Well, you could always get Clifford, the big red dog.
Yeah, that's
to
a good
chase the
idea.
cat. Yeah.
Clifford could chase the cat.
Clifford's a big dog. He would chase
I
everybody.
don't think he'd fit in the armory.
I don't think so either. Mm-mm. My daughter loves Clifford too. That's such
My
a good
kids
idea.
love
I didn't even
Clifford,
think of
too.
that. And it's funny because I paid for the Pete the Cat costume because I was going to get somebody to rent, but it was half the price for me to just buy the Pete the Cat costume. So it's always somebody I know in the Pete the Cat costume. And I think it's becoming like kind of a matter of pride now. Like I was Pete.
love that.
I never heard of Pete the Cat until you told me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, we love Pete the Cat is from like the 70s.
I was going to say, it's been around for
Yeah,
a
like
long
the guy who
time.
wrote him is very like, because he's groovy. Like Pete the Cat is
Yes,
super
yes,
groovy.
yes.
You know, he's into like peace and love and
You sure you
all
don't
that
mean
stuff.
Felix the Cat?
No, Pete the
Was it-
Cat.
You're looking at me. You don't remember
Wasn't
Felix,
Felix
the
the
Cat?
cat from? No, that was Sebastian the cat.
Felix the Cat, I thought was from like the 70s. Like,
He was the guy who was just black and white, right?
Yeah.
Felix was. Okay, so that's a different cat, but
well, obviously,
Yeah.
because his name's not Pete.
but Pete, he's groovy. And
I didn't watch a lot of TV shows when I was a little kid. My mom made me watch Elvis movies.
I don't know.
I love that so
I
much.
can't remember Felix the Cat was like a regular cartoon show on TV, though.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to know which one came first, but I think about like those old beloved book characters that really like, that was a book series for a long time before it maybe, like Pete's a TV show now. You can find them on TV. But some of like Clifford, the Berenstain Bears, I don't know, whatever. And those classics, kids still read. My daughter's reading Junie B. Jones right now, which let me tell you, as an adult reading it, I have some feelings about Junie B. Jones because it doesn't hold up. I'll tell you. In the year of our Lord 2025, that book does not hold up because I'm reading it and I'm like, this is not. It's like it's not politically correct. It's not worded at all like nice. Like it's.
I'm the same way because of Dr. Seuss. When I got them green eggs, come to find out it was mold. So yeah, he was all wrong. That green eggs.
I've never heard that. Never heard that. That's mold. Is that what it is for real?
Mold's green.
Well, yeah, but how do you know the eggs were moldy? Were you there?
In the book, I don't think that. Never mind. Why you got to mess with me too?
So
Listen,
Sam,
you started
Sam,
it.
here's a thought.
I thought
think
you said
that,
Susanna for it.
Oh, Santa. No, not Sam.
Me.
Trust me, Santa. This is not a question you're going to want to answer.
Oh God, here we go.
So I'm thinking that we have Felix the Cat for the kids, but for the moms,
No.
can we get an updated version of the Hardy Boys? Maybe like Sam and Dean from Stranger
Well,
Things.
let me
Not
tell
Stranger
you.
Things,
No.
Supernatural.
Yeah.
So last year I had cutouts of the Bat Boys that are from A Court of Thorns and Roses. Yeah. They were up. They were shirtless. You could go take your picture with them. And we're adding a special guest this year. Yeah, Mr. Zayden Ryerson from Fourth Wing is going to be out and about. You will find him at the book fair. You
A person? Not a cutout?
I wish.
Oh, okay.
No,
I'm
it's
still
a
excited.
cutout.
I'm still excited.
It's still good, I promise. We'll put a
So-
little background. You come take a picture, however you want. Please be silly, be funny. I think people were scared to like act silly with
Right,
them.
yeah,
They were
yeah,
just
but
like, and then I saw some people like, tiptoeing up, like I'm going to take a silly picture with them now. Like, please take all this.
that's
That's what
the
they're there
point.
for.
Yes, that's the
Take
point.
silly pictures.
I can see somebody throwing their leg up. Into
Yes,
his arms.
that's what basically they were hugging them and
Yeah,
like just
I love
doing
it.
silly.
I have my own. I have a full-size banner that is about 5 feet tall of my shirtless super soldier, which will be at my
Short
table.
guy.
Okay.
I know. I cheaped out on the banner. I didn't get the big one. I put him on a stand, so he's like
Yes,
7
right. I was
feet
going to say
tall.
she's going to put him on a stand.
Mine's 6 foot. He's
So come to my table and meet my super soldier. Take a picture with him.
And I don't think you want Felix the Cat for the kids.
No. So
You said Felix the Cat for the kids.
I have stickers. They're not that inappropriate. Like they say good girl for the bad boy.
Yeah.
And my other sticker says I like books like I like men hard. And
Now, did you special order those, or did you find them already?
my designer made them.
Okay, nice.
And they're cute. They have my logo on the bottom.
I love
and
it.
when there's events with kids, I have to. I don't put them on my table anymore because little kids come over and they say, "Oh, a sticker. Can I have one?" I also stopped putting chocolate on my table too because little kids come over and they start looking at my book cover covers.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a shirtless guy. Like you see that at the beach, but some of the little boys get all funny and they're like, oh, I know what kind of book that is.
It's
And I'm like,
definitely
go find your mother.
something I have to address this year because when we were at A Million Lives, I'm very hard to rattle.
Right.
I read romance. I read all kinds of romance. Like I'm walking through A Million Lives and the character art that people had out, I was scandalized. I was like, what? I mean,
So they're going for shock value, maybe?
I really think it was. We're talking multiple people in all kinds of compromising positions, and and some of it are like, okay, so one looked like a yeti. He's like a big, white, the Bumble from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Okay, so the guy looks like, but he wasn't as hairy. He was like a smooth big yeti. Yeah. And I'm looking at my friend, and I said, "What is that?" And she said, "That's Jack Frost." Because I guess it had something to do with the book. And Jack Frost was in a very compromising position. And I never thought that I would have to put in instructions like, I'm sorry, this is a family-friendly event. You got to put this away. Yes. And please, like, your discrete covers should be on. Like, Kristie's covers are fine. That's about as much as we can do, I think, at the book fair at Bel Air. So... we're keeping it clean.
Anything wrong with abs?
No, abs are on display. Yeah. We're good with abs. But
you just can't bring the chili peppers.
No. And she can't bring her character art.
I don't have character art yet.
I think maybe someday you might.
Oh, I will.
Readers love character, and that's great. Like, great. Keep it behind the table, and then show them when they buy the book.
I'm working with a company now who's doing special editions, box special editions, and she's going to do character art as well. So I'm super excited to see that.
That's fantastic. Yeah. What are you all's thoughts about all these special editions with the sprayed edges and
I think it's industry.
It's so beautiful.
The book industry has been losing money on paperbacks and hardbacks for years now. I mean, they've just become almost obsolete because of audiobooks and ebooks and all of that.
Really?
People don't want to read physical books. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in the past couple of years, there's been this resurgence of hardbacks, but they're making them, they're stunning. We have a woman in the community. Her name is Amber, and she works at Bookish Signs and More, and she does some stunning work. I mean, she not only sprays, but she does like the 3D printing of I'm talking like art.
Yeah, they're works of art.
Yes.
Like you almost don't want to open them because they're so beautiful.
They're
so
trophies.
beautiful.
And there are plenty of readers out there who will read the ebook, and then if they like it, they will go buy their trophy to keep on themselves. Even my plain old paperbacks. I have readers that come to events and say, I read your ebook and I would like a signed copy for my shelf. Yeah. They're not gonna read the book again, probably. Right. And they're gonna put it on their shelf on their signed copy shelf. And Kayla Diekman, she has sprayed some edges for me.
She's done mine too.
And she does beautiful work. And I take them with me to events. Usually I usually sell one or two. I'm almost out. Kayla, I'm going to be calling you.
It's funny because I think of my son who's 32 and my daughter who's 23, and even all of their friends, they like the physical book, and they won't get rid of them. No. They keep them and they'll read them again. Because I got my daughter an e-reader before. She didn't like it.
I think if you grew up on physical books and you're trying to skip to an e-reader, but I didn't appreciate audiobooks and ebooks until I had no time to sit down with a physical book. And now all I do is I do them in separate. So have you ever read the book Atomic Habits or heard about the book Atomic Habits? Okay, so this man talks about habit stacking, right? So you're doing something else, but while you're doing that thing, you're going to, do something else and form a habit, right? So I habit stacked reading. That was how I became more of a prolific reader. And so I will have, an AirPod in whatever you call them, in my ear. And, I'm folding laundry, I'm doing dishes, I'm whatever, but I'm listening to my book. My e-reader is sitting on my bed. My physical book is either in my purse or, somewhere else in the house. And so depending on where I'm at, that, time is what I'm reading and how I'm reading. But for a long time, I was strictly ebook and audio because during the newborn phase with my daughter, I didn't have a hand for a book. So you got to find other ways to do it.
There's certain books I can listen to, like novels I can. If it's a good person that's doing the voice. Some self-help books I can. But most of your self-help books, you need to have physical
Yeah, see, I'm the opposite. I love nonfiction on audio, and I actually like, because I'm in and out of the car.
Yeah.
And I feel like you can pick up self-help again, no problem.
Right.
I don't have to be reminded of story. I don't have to be prompted. It's just, here's the next part of this.
Certain areas.
Yeah.
So I can't remember where Rich's studio is, but I can put down a book and pick it up 2 months later and know exactly where we left off.
I can't do that.
I'm like that too.
I need to be.
But I will say this too, for like a long car ride, Mindy Kaling, because she does her own audiobooks, and she's just so, her delivery, I guess because it's her material.
Yeah.
I mean, that it makes.
That's one of my
Literature
favorite
is
genres.
So important.
It
Yeah,
makes it-
memoirs read by the author are one of my favorite genres.
Leslie Jones.
Leslie
Oh my
Jones
gosh.
is so good. Did
I
you
can't
do?
drive and listen
I
because
know.
I'm going to
Wait,
wreck.
Leslie Jones that used to be on Saturday Night
Yes.
Live?
Yes, she has a great memoir. It's
Really?
so good.
Yes.
You know who
Oh, I
else
gotta
was
get that. I
stunning?
love her.
Was Viola Davis wrote out of this world. I had trouble driving during it because I was like choked up, and I mean her story is amazing.
Wow.
It's amazing. So that's another thing I love on audio is hearing the actual author.
And
narrate.
PSA for all the dark romance girlies out there, if you haven't read the Butcher and Blackbird books yet,
so good.
listen to them. Trust me, ladies, that Irish accent is to die for.
They are very good. And she sings in the second one, which I thought was so cool. Like this whole full cast audio thing that's like becoming a really popular. It is so cool. It feels like you're experiencing a movie, but they're in your ears. It's so
You
cool.
hear the background.
Yeah,
It's
they make like all kinds of noises. Like
all kinds of noises.
All right, ladies, something very important. And I'm gonna start with you, Cardyn. Tell everybody your website and how they can get your books.
Oh, okay, fantastic. So I'm still on the Zon, and I apologize for people for reasons I understand why the people who've cut that off. So I really ask people to borrow my book from the library and read it and review it. I love sales. That's great. But that's not for everybody's budget or inclination. And I just want people to read. And if they would do a review on Goodreads or whatever their favorite review site is, that's actually what works for me the most. And I think I more have that attitude just because of doing the Bitchy Quill podcast with Heather Brooks and our finale year of the Right Women Book Fest. And I forgot to mention earlier that day one, Saturday, July 19th, is ticketed. I think it's about $29 plus whatever the Eventbrite fee is, so maybe around $34 total. And then I hope Heather will forgive me, but I'm 99% sure that with each adult ticket, a kid can come for free. And if I'm wrong about that, just say, I heard it on the podcast, Cardyn said it, and we'll let you in. But yeah.
What did you say the name of the podcast
Our
was?
podcast is called The Bitchy Quill.
The Bitchy Quill.
Yes. We talk about bookish stuff, but we talk about kind of life from a feminist perspective.
I just love the title.
Yeah.
You sold me already.
Thank you. Well, we worked with it. We're like, because we want to make it clear that it's a little edgy. We're not using profanity, or that it's not edgy in that way, but we're talking about mature topics, mostly somehow connected to the bookish world and publishing and whatnot. But our first episode was towards the end of October, where we were just encouraging people to read the online PDF, searchable PDF of Project 2025. We weren't telling people what to think. We were just saying it's almost 1,000 pages, but the searchable PDF, people could look at, if you have school-age kids, look at what they want to do for education. If you have an elderly person or you're elderly, and just see if it's in alignment with what you want to do or what you want the government to do. So that's why we started at the end of October, to just encourage people to, but we're I was like, okay, well, we want people to know, we got an attitude.
If you start a podcast, Kristie, just remember it can't be called Red Hot Chili Pepper, because I think that's trademark.
Okay.
Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say about day 2 is free for the day 2 Sunday, July 20th at the South Bowie Library. That's free.
Awesome.
How did people get your books?
Yes.
And the toy peppers.
You're very into these toy peppers. I think you need
I
to stop.
I've
never seen a toy pepper. Is
I
there a
am
toy
going to
pepper?
buy some toy peppers and put my logo on them.
I think you should.
And I'm going to put Rich's picture on them.
Yeah.
No, my
Please.
God, no, especially if they take a battery. You all right, Sam?
Did he almost choke you?
Almost lost my water.
There's no filter on this podcast.
I see that.
Kristie started all that.
So my books are available at my website, KristieWolf.com. That's Kristie with a K, Ristie, and Wolf, just like the animal, WOLF. My books are available on Amazon. I'm on Kindle and Kindle Unlimited for all the e-readers out there. And they're also available on most major retailer platforms, like BarnesandNoble.com. And they are available in person. So if you go to my website or follow me on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok and you're local, there are lots of options throughout the summer to come and meet me in person, and I want to meet you too. I'll be at the Book Fair at Bel Air on August 23rd. I'll be at the Right Women's Book Fest on July 13th.
19th.
July 19th.
Make sure you get good direction.
Yes. Oh, I was there last year.
She knows.
Apparently
out. Maybe not. That's why I always leave a half hour early. And so I'll be at about town. I'll be at First Fridays. I'll be at this First Friday this year. Of the First Friday in Bel Air of this year on June 6th maybe.
Yeah.
And other places. So look for me and come and say hi.
It would have been perfect timing if when we were talking about the toy chili pepper, if somebody's phone just started vibrating right away.
We were good and made sure our phones were not on before we started.
Yes.
So
I may have trouble getting here, but once I'm here, I know what to do.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah, we know.
on that note, you can find my books. It's www.esrosalyn.com. Those are my books that I write with my best friend, Erin. And we have a teen series called Mixtape that's based in the early 2000s where you get to follow this young girl through her kind of self-discovery journey over, let's see, how many years is it? 8. I think it's 8 years total, or maybe it's 6. I don't know. But you get to follow her throughout her journey and get to kind of watch her. It's pretty cool. And then the book fair at Bel Air is on August 23rd from 10 to 2, completely free, lots of things to do, so many great authors. Please find us on Instagram and Facebook at Book Fair at Bel Air to see all of the authors, all of the cool things we're doing, and definitely come visit us.
You're forgetting something.
What am I forgetting?
Don't you have a podcast?
I do have a podcast, but it's like completely unrelated.
It's all right.
My podcast is called Creating Joyful Readers, in which I talk to secondary literacy educators about how to create happy kids who loves books.
How is that unrelated?
Because it's like for teachers. Like I'm talking directly to high school English teachers in the podcast.
About writing,
And
right?
books.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a separate business. I don't even think of them as the
It's
same
more
thing.
related to this than freaking chili peppers.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for making this possible, because it's you all's connection that facilitated this. So just thank you to all.
Absolutely. Happy to have you.
Kristie, well, you both know, so I'm letting you know too, the door's always open.
Thank you for listening to the Conversations with Rich Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something from it as I did. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and share more incredible stories. Don't forget to connect with us on social media or visit our website at conversationswithrichbennett.com for updates, giveaways, and more. Until next time, take care, be kind, and keep the conversations going. You know, it takes a lot to put a podcast together, and my sponsors help out a lot, but I also have some supporters that actually help me when it comes to the editing software, the hosting, and so forth. There's a lot that goes into putting this together. So I want to thank them, and if you can, please visit their websites, visit their businesses, support them however you can. So please visit the following: Real Life Prosthetics, Cutting Edge Solutions, Restoring Ability since 2001. go to reallifeprosthetics.com. Full Circle Boards. Nobody does charcuterie like Full Circle Boards. Visit them at fullcircleboards.com. Sincerely Sawyer Photography. Live in the moment. They'll capture it. Visit them at sincerelysawyer.com.